So welcome on this Olympic Day, which in between I've been watching. I'm sure many of you are also. And it's really a pleasure. I've asked Robin is going to be on with me also today because I'm going to be doing is showing you a video that it's from a workshop that we did in Maryland quite a few years ago. But the subject that keeps coming up to me is this idea of how do we ask permission of our animals, our horses or our dogs, before we actually, actually start to work with them, whether it's working on the ground through the various playground for higher learning, or whether it's on the body. And if it's a horse, I want to stand a little bit to the side. And it's what is ideal is when I'm actually working, doing a workshop, and I can be talking to the people and the participants, and the horse has a chance to look at me. So I'm not directly addressing them to start with. And then when I do approach them, I like to stand a little bit to the side and invite the horse to reach out to me and touch my hand, touch the actual, the back of my hand, not like I'm offering food. And with dogs, if somebody walks up to me with their dogs and says, that they're there for me to work with them, I want to give that dog a chance to feel comfortable with their person and just to see me. So I don't approach them at first. And they just have a chance to get the dog to look at you or your horse, or and we were just, I loved a comment that Robin made. Actually, Robin, you might make that about, you wouldn't approach your cat like some people approach dogs, right? We have to be much more respectful. If you could just make that comment, I love that comment about that, Robin.
Well, I just noticed that I think that especially horses and dogs we do things to them because we can, and because they're tolerant and they put up with us. Cats, not so much. And so if we thought about approaching our dogs and our horses the way we might approach a cat in a mindful way that doesn't get us scratched or bitten or whatever, that I think our animals might be a little bit happier with us.
No question. Now, so what you're going to be seeing when I start this video, we're in the middle of something. I've already been working on this dog a little bit, and I just pointed out the fact that I'm waiting for her to actually turn and and look at me and indicate in some way that she's interested. And she had just done that, and that's the comment that is made by one of the participants. Now, so if I go to my share and pray that I can, yes, there it goes.
Permission, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because we talked about that a bit yesterday, but it wasn't really explained as what to look for. It's clearly your dog's going to do something. What might it look like? It can look like that.
Yeah. And she turned and touched when I started talking to you. Now, so my whole thing, I used the back of my hand, and we've given them all animal names, and this is the llama touch. And I'll tell you how it got its name before. And so I just, now I said last night that I would talk about my breath. So I'm very specific about my breathing. Watch, just if you can say that just a little bit. Just a tiny bit, okay. So, and I have a very specific way of breathing, like into my. I'm just going to pause this for a moment. Can you hear me well enough, Robin?
Yes, I can hear you. Can others?
Okay, so I just wanted to stop this for a moment and talk about this breathing, because how we breathe really affects the way we actually touch or put our hands on an animal.
Linda, can you just pause for a minute? Somebody said she can't really hear clearly. Is that just on the video or also on when Linda's just speaking now? On the video. On the video, that's why she's stopping it. Thank you. Thanks, Shannon. Go ahead, Linda. Sorry.
So I'm confused. I'm sorry.
They
she
just
can't.
couldn't hear you well on the video, which is why you've paused it to say what you were doing, is what
Oh,
I.
right, exactly, and that's what I'm going to be,
Yeah.
because it's not always easy. If I'm looking down or my head is turned away, you won't be able to. And Marnie, perhaps you could tell people how to turn on their captions so that they can see that. Let's just take a moment and do that, because it's harder to hear when I'm turned away.
Okay, if you go to the bottom of your screen and down there, you should find 2 C's in a box. And that will be, it also says show caption. You click on that and it'll give you choices of language and view, and you can pull it, drag it around the screen to get it out of your way anywhere you want it. So
Marnie, the problem is it won't make it captions from the video. We tried this yesterday, Linda.
it has 4. Oh, that's interesting.
But people could try it. Maybe it was just our.
Well, yeah, let's
Okay, so we'll just see this. We've spent several hours attempting to make this work easily. Let's see if it does. Nose and out through lightly pursed lips. And I have to be careful not to blow on her, especially on the dog.
She's like a dandelion right now, so be careful.
So I start in the shoulder area. That's where they're the most receptive. And I do the pause. Now, the pause is one of the 9 elements. And we used to do it, before I gave this in a hospital, I used to do with P, period, A, period, W, period, S, period. Based on Sally Morgan's. Now, just so what I was saying, I don't know if you can hear it, and I don't know why I put this in here, but we used to call the pause, we now call it a mindful pause. And I used to call it PAWS, like the pause that allows wondrous stillness. And I quit doing that when I started sharing this, with, for humans, we stopped doing that. But what's important about the pause, it's not only the pause between the touches, but it's also the pause when you're working with the dog when you're just working with them, ask them to do something, focusing, give them time to stop and think. And what I think personally that we really need to pay more attention to is how much our dogs understand of what we're saying. It's so interesting how often this dog has actually turned to me and looked at me or moving her shoulder closer to me when we're talking about something. And this breathing thing that I'm talking about, it's so interesting when you first start paying attention to the TTouches and the various touches that we use in the various places we use them. The tendency is to focus, of course, and when we focus, often the tendency is to hold the breath. And that's why over the years, I have really practiced paying attention as much as I possibly can to the breath in and giving the time and this slight, very soft breaths of my push of my breath out through pursed lips, because this helps to oxygenate us. And this breathing in through the nose makes a really big difference in how much energy that we get and how much our animals pay attention to us. And what we didn't say, if you have questions, if you can actually put a reaction and stop at any point as I go along, or you can write them in the chat. And we're going to ask people not to answer in the chat, because we'll make sure that if it's a question that you have for everybody, that I'll answer it for everyone. My class that she did with cranial sacral, the pause allows wondrous stillness, the cranial sacral pause. But, because it's cute, like a dog's pause, that's a good in a hospital setting. So I changed it to the mindful pause, because when I sat back and paused, what did she do in that moment? Who saw it?
She shifted towards you.
She shifted toward me. And I give her time to do this, to turn her head, to look around. Now, if all of you could pay attention to your breathing and soften your eyes, peripheral vision is called soft eyes instead of directly. And if you pay attention to your breathing, you can just really help her be much more comfortable. And put your direction not exactly on her, but kind of in front of her, to the side, down, so it's not like so directed.
The closed captioning doesn't work on the video, just so you know. I don't know how many people can hear at all what you're saying.
Now, I'm not going back there yet because we saw that this right. Now, the reason that I'm doing so much around the shoulders and just a little slide out with the back of my hand on her back, she has she has a issue, and I believe that she was getting over cruciate ligament surgery, and she was to the point that she could actually bring her to the class at that point. And so what I want to do with this, and what it's really helpful, I'm taking time to pause and talk to the class. It gives her a chance just to be there. And that's part of this trusting that I am not going to hurt her. And what I'm saying at one point, actually, maybe I'll just stop the sound because it is harder, because I'll just tell you what I'm saying. Okay. So my preference would have been to actually start on the other side, but she didn't, of course, want to lie on this side. She was on the right. But ideally, if I start on the body in such a way that she finds out that she can trust me and I'm not going to do something that is going to be scary or hurt her. That's why I'm really taking this time. And it's a little bit like letting grass grow, because I want her to have the time. And it's much harder in a way if you're just working on your animal alone and you don't have the opportunity to take my attention off her and let her just feel. So as I said in the beginning, I start on the shoulders, and then I was just doing a few circles with the back of my hand and the slide. And for those of you who are new, because I see a lot of new faces, and actually I'd like to find out in a few minutes. I'm going to stop and ask for some feedback. How many of you actually know the TTouches? Because this is in a 6-day class. This is why we're really taking the time with this dog. When I do like a 3-day introduction where people bring their dogs and they're all lying around the room, like we have about 14 dogs around this room. And it's one of the reasons I can't get her up and give her a little space, because I worked quite a while with her, as you'll see in a little bit, because we had 2 reactive dogs down at different parts of the room. So I'm just doing little circles and slides, and then I'll do her ears. And I'm really watching for her expressions and her breathing. So I'm just taking my thumb at the base of the ear and doing a little circle, kind of a oval circle with my thumb at the base of the ear, because that is on the triple heater meridian, and that's what I'm talking about here. The triple heater meridian affects the respiration, the digestion, and for those who might be in breeding dogs, also the reproductive system. So you can see her listening there. This is quite interesting, the expression on her face right now. And I'm really gentle with this. This is the thing that's so important to know with this work that we do on the body. First of all, it's really important that we support the weight of our own hand. And this is it's not like a massage, it's a message. What I'm interested in is addressing and connecting with that phenomenal intelligence that is in every cell in the body. And the idea when there's fear or concern, look at her lean into this a little bit. There. No, I'm just giving her space to see, does she want to get up? That's my question to her. And interesting, isn't it? Her response. And I would like to have a discussion at some point with everybody. How many of you recognize how much your dogs understand of what's going on? I don't, and our horses. It's the same thing. I don't think we get it. She's interesting, responding to comments of her person. We'll see if I'm saying anything that's worthwhile. Oops. Constantly learning. And the thing I'm learning more and more is the importance of this giving them time. My sister Robin talks about it all the time. It's the pauses. And it's really helpful to me to have you sitting here, because otherwise I'd have to really consciously like sit back and just, and not look at her. Look down and let her look at me. Because that gives her a chance. If I focus on her, it doesn't give her a chance to look at me. Now, what I want you to understand, what I'm doing, all the stuff on her shoulders, on her head, on her ears, I am working with her body with sorry, the focus and the respect that I would use working on a part that's had surgery on it, which she's had on the right side, right hind leg. And so I have to convince her body and her mind and her cells, her being, that I am going to pay attention to how she's responding to what I'm doing. And I won't do anything that will be a problem for her. So we're just responding to another dog moving at the other end. So this is why I'm taking a lot of time with this. Because she was really, she will put her weight on that leg, but she was very uncertain. No. That was interesting, wasn't it? Now, what I'm going to do with her are some hair slides. This is another, how many of you have done hair slides on your dog? They're really helpful, or cats, right? Now, what I'd like you to do, I'm sorry that, you know, you're just kind of sitting here watching. What I'd like to invite you to do, to imagine, each one of you, that you have a dog or a cat in front of you, and you're doing on them what I'm doing on her. Now, can you see I started along both sides of the spine, and I just love this circle and slide. Now, and right now I'm just getting her acquainted with my hands to make sure that she knows she can trust me. That was the first time I've gone back that far. On that AK point. This would be a really interesting picture. I mean, look what she just did. And if I hadn't been sitting back, giving her space, do you think she would have? She wouldn't have had to show us. That's a very good girl. And then giving her time to think about this in between. Now, what we talked about last night, I'm supporting the weight of my own hand. So I'm supporting the weight of my own hand and I'm doing a little circle and a slide. And I want to just stop this a moment and talk about this because we don't talk about the circle and that slight slide, but it's something that Robin and I had a discussion about this some few months ago, and it's something we just do intuitively, a circle and then just a little connection, circle and a connection. And not always, if there's pain around an area, I won't do that slide. And perhaps some of you noticed that when I went down the spine with, on each side, on the spine, with both hands, I stopped just with my left hand, just back in the upper part of the back, as I took my right hand down to an area that I hadn't been there, I hadn't gone there before, because I wanted her to feel the focus and to keep the safety where my left hand was. And I'd just like to stop a moment now, Robin, and see if there are any questions or any comments, or Robin,
Well,
if you have any comments.
There were only, the question was, is it important to stroke only one ear at a time rather than both together? And the closed captioning does now seem to be working on the video as well, just so you know.
Great. So that, to answer the question about one hand and not the other, I would like to invite you to try it on yourself. If you put your hands like anywhere, I'm putting it down on just above my knee, and you know, or Robin starting her ears, and you do both ears at once, for instance. And now take one hand away and do one ear at a time. And then go back to the two ears, and it's really hard to focus when you've got your hand in two places. If you go down on the leg where I started, just above the knee, and I do a circle and a quarter with both hands as I do that. And now I take one hand off and I just rest the other hand there lightly against it and do the 1 1/4 circle with one hand. I have a totally different connection and ability to stay present in that, and that's why we do it. There are times when you might use two hands. I'm sure there are times, but at the moment I can't think of it. Except, well, actually, you'll see if we do an inchworm or we do something like on a horse, we'll do it on the mane, all along the top of the mane. You'll be putting both hands on and just gently moving, pushing to the area together, and then pausing, and then come back and just a little tiny stretch out with your hands apart. So that is a place where we use both hands.
Here is give her a sense of her body, of the wonder of this body.
So what I just said, I'm giving her a sense of her body, the wonder of her body. And my focus, what I'm holding is, I want to give her a feeling of her whole body, because when you have an injury anywhere, think about it, you could have just a hangnail that hurts you, and that's where your whole focus is. And if in this case, or in your case, I'm going to bring a sense of trust to her whole body and get her into it. And that's why I kind of keep going along the spine and going to these areas that are safe and expanding the areas of safety.
Interesting what I'm doing also. Try to do it on the other side. I don't know when to do this.
Again, I give her just a chance.
I have a roller.
Now, where my intention is, what I'm holding is to bring a sense of her feeling safe in her body, feeling her body.
Now, let's see if I can just work the stop. How many of you have become aware of this important spot, right?
We're just talking about the importance of the muzzle
And
of
I'm
the face
having her rest
and getting her
on
feeling comfortable.
my hand.
because that is the seat of our emotions working around the mouth.
Now, ears, we're going to talk about. How important
For the
they are.
ears. And some of the things that we say when you're actually doing her ears are a flop ear. So I am careful how I work with that. If I've got an ear that stands up, I follow it
Area,
forward.
this is an area to activate relaxation, calming.
Question is, are you using voice to connect with an animal during the touches?
That's what thank you. Good question. That's why I'm really paying attention to the tone of my voice and the
So
tempo.
on our chart yesterday, what do you think? When she comes to me like that, how would you rate how she felt about that?
She's smiling.
A 10.
A 10, right? I mean, keep doing it. I want to see if it's possible for her to relax enough to lie on her side. And it may be a little hard because, thinking about it, is I want to be able to get into her shoulders, because when she's favoring that hind leg that she is, she's putting more weight on the shoulders. And of course on the other hind leg. So we want to get to that, but I'd much rather first just let her be in the room, experiencing this for you.
So what I'm
have
saying,
her
ideally,
on
I'd
your
love to,
way.
if it was possible for her to lie flat, but just to have her, she had just come this day, and to have her
Let's do your
just be in here and feel okay with all of the other dogs and all the stuff we're doing,
So
that's
I'm
my
just doing
first
circle and then
initial
we'll slide through the hair.
connection for her.
Now I'm doing two hands at once.
And this
one
is
of the
interesting,
reasons
my
is I
left hand
want
is
her to
also
focus
doing a
on my
circle
left hand.
because I want
And
her
I'm going
not to have
closer
just the
to
focus on the right. Because that's where,
area.
before she did not want to be touched around the
She's
tail. or
got
the
arthritis, but
ankle.
she got Lyme 2 years ago, and we treated it. But then she was attacked by a dog and locked onto, and that's when and then she lost.
Oh, now I remember, she was attacked by another dog,
Cascading effect.
and
I
that's when
was
she
away
really lost her
in Texas
confidence.
for a family thing, and I came back, and it was just it had just gotten so much worse. So we've just gone through the Rimadyl, and it had been creeping up, and all of a sudden it just kind of collapsed. And she's always had an ACL problem. She had an injury before we got her. on her right leg.
Now let's see if I can get to your tail.
I want to see how far I can get. Look at the tail. Isn't that interesting?
This is so interesting.
We call it monkey tail. She'll let you grab the back of it. It's very typical.
Interesting. Now, think about the tail of a way to activate this cranial sacral fluid. An extension, easy, of her nervous system. And I have found in older dogs that working the tail is one of the best ways to give them energy.
Thinking, is this okay? I just want her to see if it is okay for me to go on.
Now, I just touched her left elbow. And one of the things about Lyme disease, because how many of you know people who have Lyme disease, close friends, or had it yourself? The pain can wander, it shifts. It's something we all need to be aware of. I have a friend who's been in bed for 4 hours. Get out of bed. Now, when I touch this leg, I see it as perfect. Don't acknowledge what's going on with it.
So I'm just thinking,
What you're
as
doing with it.
instead of
I just
seeing
hold
that,
the potential
focusing
for
on the
ideal
injury
function.
to
So when I
the,
say, I see it as perfect, I hold the potential for ideal communication between the cells.
Could you just pause for a moment, Linda?
That's my tip.
So there was just a couple of questions. The most recent was there was something you said interesting about the tail a minute ago in the video. I don't know if you remember what it was. But the other question is, what method did you say you were doing on the ears again? Any work on the tail, or does that come later? Well, I think that came later, which I think you just showed. I don't know what I don't remember what you said about the tail though.
well, did anyone see that the tip of the tail actually curled up as I started working on the top?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was really interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know if people were focusing on my right hand, if they had seen that, because it was really interesting. And what she said is that the dog had been attacked from behind. And so that was really, I've never seen that before in that way on that type of tail, having the end lift. And the tail is where the tail and the whole mouth area, muzzle area, those are the two areas where we can really bring a sense of trust back to a dog who has been attacked. And what she said, I don't know if you could hear it well enough, she said that she's getting worse. You know, she's had some ACL problems, but as she gets older, she's getting more reactive to other dogs and more concerned about her own body. And this, what I'd like it for those of you who know the work, because we have quite a few here who do, obviously. Just imagine, bring an animal in, a dog, it could be a cat too, and just imagine that you're doing some work like this, just as I'm doing it on that animal. Imagine it, because this is one of the things that we know now because of COVID. What we discovered that people who were like in class with us and had relatives, parents or grandparents in isolation in the hospital, and they could not get to them during COVID. So they were dying alone, basically, that they felt the connection when the person at home could just start to imagine working on them. And we had enough feedback from this, direct feedback, that we knew that it was actually working. And I am totally convinced from feedback over years now that you can imagine, whether your animal is here with you or not, you can imagine doing these TTouches on them and just using this very light connection, connecting at that level of the phenomenal intelligence in every cell in our body. So I'm going to go on and just
One, can I just interrupt? So someone said, I realize you're speaking to students. Do you ever speak verbally with animals or mind to mind with the animals?
I am, really good question. I speak a lot quietly to them, but I'm mostly speaking at heart to heart and cell to cell. I'm really connecting with them because this is something that not everybody, I think, is aware of. Thanks to the interest in quantum science now and the understanding that energy is every thought that we have, every belief that we have, every feeling and every emotion. That's what energy is. And everything is energy. So the fact that we can actually work with our animals from a distance, that has been proven over and over. And if any of you are interested and don't know what I'm talking about, there's a really interesting book called The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. And Marnie will write in the chat the name of this, because it shows in just endless, many big studies by big universities, how it's been proven that we can affect across the world, actually, across the room, across the country. And another one that's really interesting that has made a huge difference to me, huge, and why I use the word energy now, because I didn't during my Feldenkrais training, I had to stop using the word energy, because I knew before that, I mean, in some of my books, it shows that I was actually focusing and working on energizing a horse, like getting more impulsion. And this was before I ever did the Feldenkrais training. But during my 4 years with Moshe Feldenkrais, because he was a scientist and there was no proof about energy, there was no definition, that was acceptable. What we weren't allowed to use the word, and so I stopped using it until I read the book, the Spontaneous Healing of Belief by Greg Braden. And those four, what he says, energy is every thought, every feeling, every emotion, and every belief. If you believe that that dog is afraid and you can't get her over that fear and she's getting worse, we can't help them unless we have techniques. And that's what this work brings to you. The TTouch, the Tellington work, and the work on the ground, all the work that we do through all of the different elements on the ground, that gives you techniques to bring together with this philosophy that we can affect with everything that we do, all of various elements of the work, the techniques. We can definitely change our behavior, our well-being, the performance of the animals, and our relationship with them. And that's in the big picture what this is about. So I'm going to go on and just, if any of you by any chance have experiences that relate to what this, you're going to have a chance to talk about it. Or if you have any, love it. I would be.
Now, look how I'm using the side of my finger, my forefinger and the thumb, because I can reach this easily.
So I'm using my thumb on the inside of the tail and the fingers on the outside. I'm holding with the thumb and circling with the fingers, or the opposite. I can hold the fingers and then work down the tail with the thumb. And again, what's the cause? I only did what? I'm actually touching the part.
If I had my choice, if we didn't have a room like this, I'd have her get up and walk and move a little bit. And my preference would be to work on the left leg first, but now see how I'm just putting my hands on, and one hand is making the circle, and the other hand is just making the connection.
Why is your preference to work on the left first?
Good question. Who wants to answer that?
I didn't hear her question.
Why would I want to prefer to work on the other leg first?
I think I have an idea because
Go, Julie.
you know her left leg is the one that's not injured, so you know that that is what it's supposed to feel like.
That I know what? Sorry.
That's what it's the normal is supposed to feel like.
Ideal function.
Yeah.
To give, for two reasons. One is I can work on the cells on this side and I can remind her body what it's like to have that communication, that cellular connection and communication. That's one reason. The other reason is she's throwing a lot of weight on there. And so
Can you just explain what you're saying, Linda? Not everyone is seeing the closed caption.
Yep. So what I'm saying is we know there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, I want to give her the trust that the feeling on the left leg when it feels okay, when she's not afraid, and that I will be careful to work with that left leg that has no problem, no issues with it, as carefully as I would on the leg that she's afraid that she's lame on, that she has problems with. And the other thing is, we know if she is favoring her right leg, she's going to be throwing more weight on the left leg and the right shoulder. So we want to work on that left side and of course the shoulders then, but she needs to just get more time to be able to get up and then stand a little bit. Now, working down the tail like this is where I'm working. The thumb is holding on the inside and the side of my forefinger is doing the 1 1/4 circles.
The question, what did she tie to the tail? Nothing. Oh no, I see. It was your shoe that was tied. The question was when she was looking at the dog while you're working on the backside, I noticed the ears both are back and she looks either anxious, in pain, unsure. Is she panting?
Let's take a look and see. She could easily have been panting then again. Oh, there.
Oh, this is when she goes to move. You can see how sore she is.
Yeah.
Linda, that's her.
Oh, sorry. That's the end. Okay, so let's just have any comments or questions.
In regards to noticing what her ears, I noticed that her ears were back. You couldn't see if she was panting, but my sense was that she was like not sure about you being back there, and you were really careful. That was the sense that as you would be. But of course, she would be, I would guess, a pretty little bit unsure of if that area had been probably not touched very much.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She,
Yeah.
you know, because she was afraid, so she stayed away. I wonder if we can go back a little bit.
Well,
for-
you can just draw it forward. You can just pull it forward too. It was nearly at the end. Try there.
Keep working. Our tendency.
No, this too far.
Our
Far?
tendency is to just
I think
keep
so. Just, it was when you were back. Try there.
That's one reason. The other reason is she's throwing a lot of weight on there. And so actually, that's also compromised. And if any of you
Look at the
ever
tail
have
just
a broken
relax,
leg,
the tip of the
you
tail.
know that it also goes to the shoulder, to the opposite shoulder. That's not just a.
It's weird.
That was really interesting.
It also hurts in the right leg.
Yeah, the girl. Now, I just have to give her little indications and not just keep working. Our tendency is to just keep working. Right? Now, please remember, I want you, even though I'm working here, I'd like you to be thinking of a dog or cat that you have, and you're just kind of following in your mind, following along.
Watch the tip of
And if you
the
don't have one in mind, make one up. But I'm sure you look good. See how it looks? This is just an easy way for me now. With the side of my forefinger, I'm stabilizing the tailbone with my thumb, and I'm moving my forefinger.
here, and the tip of it.
Now she's
And when she turns back and looks at me like that, okay?
What would you like to do?
Choice.
Good girl. I want to give her a little break. Now, she needs to, can you get her up now? I want her to move now.
Which way would you like us to go?
Just walk here and
Up, up.
Okay, so other comments or questions? I know this is a really slow video, but one of the things that I've really been thinking about a lot is how much we have to learn to listen to our animals, because there's such a tendency when you go to work with an animal just to start doing something, and taking the time to actually give them the opportunity to know that you're listening to them, that you're going to sit back and give them a chance. And this is, if I'm working individually with a dog that is in a room like this, or even sometimes a cat that is afraid of being or concerned about some part of the body, and I just give them a chance to get up and walk around and then wait and see, do they come back to me? And if they want more work, they'll come back. And so for the person who asked, am I talking to the dog? I'm connecting at them. I'm just open to them the whole time, listening in a different way and really watching for those signs, but holding, I said it at one point, and I don't know if you could hear this. It's really a question of seeing the phenomenal in wonder that this dog is. I mean, when I look at an animal, I don't care what the situation is. I see it as a sense of wonder. And what the wonder is about is the fact that we know these facts, that every cell in the body knows its function in the body. And that is what has just inspired me since 1976 when I read this in the book Man on His Nature by Sir Charles Sherrington. One of the books that was recommended by Moshe Feldenkrais for our training was this book, and this is written by a Nobel Prize recipient. And when I read in this book that every cell knows its function in the body, during my rest of the 3 years of my Feldenkrais training, instead of seeing the body as this, as the connection with the nervous system, I saw it as a collection of incredible intelligence in every cell. And the thing then that, I think many years later, had to be 2010 when I read Bruce Lipton's book, Spontaneous Evolution. And he talks about the communication between the cells. And I began to realize, years ago, those of you who've been here for a long time, you remember when we talked about turning on the electric lights of the body. That was in one of the newsletters that Robin wrote. And that's what I see with these circular touches, this like 1 1/4 TTouch. It's like turning a key to enter this amazing intelligence in our bodies and in their bodies. And when I see that, it's not that like I ignore the fact that she's hurting or lame or sore or had this injury or fear. It's wait a minute, here is a way that we can bring a sense of trust back to your body with the combination of what we do from the ground through the various elements. And for those of you who don't know yet, this amazing system that Robin has improved, we started off 25 years ago advocating for leading dogs with a line from the chest and from the back instead of just from the collar. And then that turned into now the sliding line, and then Robin has come up with this amazing connector system. And it's a game changer because it stops dogs from pulling, it brings them into balance.
Linda, can you just stop your share and then it's probably easier with that. There's just a question that you commented on working on the tail and muzzle, bringing a sense of trust back to the dog. Now, any comments on dogs with dog tails?
Absolutely. Really good question. It's a dog tail or an amputated limb. It's the same. What we do with the dog tail, first of all, you bring awareness to it with this, really gentle touches with the tips of the fingers, or sometimes you might just have to just put this part of your fingers on and just hold and bring a sense of trust into that. And then use this phantom limb concept of just going on and touching as though the tail was still there. So it will depend on the breed, whether the tail goes, up or down, whatever the breed is. And just imagine this. And we've had some really interesting changes in that by doing this. But
Another great question.
Wait, I want to tell one
Oh,
more
sorry.
thing. I just thought of another dog that came to my mind. It was during the filming for the dog video that we did. And we had a dog who came to us in Santa Fe, we wanted a dog with a problem. And it was a big, what's he, Brody? No, it was Yeah, it was a Rottweiler. And he was really aggressive toward men, and the cameraman was a man. And so what I did when we brought him out in the area, you could feel his tail. He had a docked tail. And so I just started working on this tail, and it was like it was rigid. It didn't move. And so I really gently, it took about 10 to 15 minutes, not a lot more. I mean, I did a little touch on the dog, and he was standing at a safe way away from this guy, standing sideways to the cameraman, far enough away that he was not, in this wanting to be just reactive to him. So as I T-touched it, the tail got softer, and when I finished, it started to wag just a little bit at what I was doing with him, and his whole attitude changed. And we have seen this over the years. When you change the posture, you change the behavior, whether it's the height of the head or the set of the tail. And how many of you worked with dogs who are really fearful and they clamp their tail against their body? So when you bring a feeling of safety and awareness and a connection of that tail through the whole spine, you change behavior. And these are some of the techniques that are, they're so simple and they work so well. You said there was other comments?
Oh, just a question, what does the T in TTouch mean?
Who wants to answer it? It's trust. Now, those of you, I should do I should do an article on this, because at first, the two T's actually, it was standing for the pi sign, the circle. This is when, before we had computers. And then we had, there was one point when I was working with the I Ching, and it's a sign, it's the gateway. It's the gateway to transformation. That was the two T's. And then it was obviously what everybody thought, it was the Tellington touch. But what I recognized is there were so many touches then that started to come out. This is like in the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years. Gentle touch, all kinds of different touches. And then I realized one day I was working on a really fearful horse at Equitana. And it's just, as I looked at this horse at the end of the ring, as I started to approach it, I swear to God, I saw up in the air, it's like I saw these words that just came into my head, trust. That second T stands for trust. And so that's what it is. It's a touch of trust. And that's what we can do. And the parts that can really help to stabilize that, bring that trust, is the mouth, around the mouth, and the tail, those two areas. And then, of course, getting the leg circles that we do, horses, dogs, because that brings them in, gets them grounded. So we're grounding, bringing them into balance and trusting. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Any comments?
There's a question. A dog doing tail work that sometimes snaps at people and barks. She has a small Jack Russell. I think she's trying to say she's afraid of something that might happen to her. Fair enough.
Fair enough. And the thing is so interesting, this concept of punishing for an aggressive dog or horse. I mean, I certainly did it. If a horse would bite, I'd give them a whack, or, kick and give them one whack. I mean, I never really got after horses like people do, but I wanted to stop the behavior. And then I read the statement in the Course of Miracles that aggression comes from a place of fear and is a call for help. And when I read that, I can remember thinking of a horse and a dog that I had punished for reactivity. And I really asked their forgiveness. And then that's when we really started even more chunking down. Wait a minute, how can we show an animal what we want instead of punishing for what behavior we don't want? And it's not that, as my brilliant sister sitting right here, Robin Hood, says, it's not that we accept the behavior, but we can show them now what it is with that we want them to do, rather than what we punishing for what we don't want them to do. So it's so exciting for me to be able to share this work and to have all of the details. And if you just take some of this work and start doing with it, that's the beauty. You'll find that it will change your life. So I would love to hear, I know we have some very experienced people here. If Robin, we were talking about a couple of cases. I wanted you were going to show maybe another example, right?
Yeah, I have we just finished an in-person class here, and we had a really lovely Doberman that came with one of our practitioners to our advanced training, and the dog had been found as a stray. They thought was maybe 8 or 9, and was she said, you can do anything to this dog. She's a very, very compliant dog, beautiful dog. And my feeling was she was a little bit kind of not so expressive, you could say, in terms of what she had to say. She had no recall at all, and it was interesting because I got her to give her more space. She was using the 2 points of contact with the sliding leash and handle, and the dog was very good. She could pull sometimes a bit, but I like to give dogs like more space in a safe way so that they find their own balance and they actually really kind of want to be with us. She's just a lovely dog. So anyway, this is just a short video of, I was just doing, my intention was to show how I use the wraps to do little lifts on the legs and so on. However, our senior dog house at the end of this, so I didn't get to it, but you're just going to see how I started with her. Okay. This is not the right one. Sorry, I had 2 videos here. Where's the other one? Oh gosh, this is really bad. Here we go. It's right here. Except, sorry, stop it because I didn't share it. Now I need to share. And there it is, I hope. Okay. So what I notice is when I come down along her belly a little bit, she sort of just tightens it a little bit. So I just noticed that, and so that's where I went to the back of my hand, and she is so beautiful. Yes, what a beautiful dog. Yes, yes. So what I'm kind of looking for is something that she might say, this is okay. So I'm just going to put my hand, the flat of my hand here, and then do a little jellyfish jiggle, and then slowly release it. What a clever dog you are. Yes, you're a clever dog. Yes. What
I've never seen her do that before.
do what?
Where she touches the
Well, she doesn't know me. You know, she doesn't know me at all, and that's a good girl. What a good girl. Yeah. So it was important for me that I could give her a pause so that she could then lie down again. You know, like I need to have her sort of have that sort of ability to maybe, I don't know, to think it was okay or something. So I'm going to do, this is what Linda started to call Daddy Longlegs. So it's like a scurry and really light of like it maybe looks like a tarantula, but it's so light and skittery, and it's really helpful for those dogs who are not comfortable about being touched. And so you're just there, and then you're not there, and then you're there, and then you're not there. So the point with this dog, I don't know if you could hear any of the sound on it, was she didn't know me, and you know, just because I could have done what I wanted with her doesn't mean that that's okay. You know, I really wanted to hear a little bit before, when I just literally put my hand on her and just waited for a moment, because when I got to her flank area, there was this little twitchiness, and she just kind of moved her head. And so what I did is I moved away from that area, And I wanted her to know that she didn't have to do anything to make me stop. And I think that, we sometimes are so, because dogs are so compliant in general, and that when we can do things until we can't, and then people sometimes go, well, they gave me no warning. They gave us heaps of warning. We just didn't actually pay attention because we could carry on with it. And what's interesting is the uh, after the course, when she took her home, she said she is so much more interactive with her, really being able to kind of express her, their relationship. And that's what that's what I think, why we have our animals, right? So we can have this relationship with them. It doesn't matter how well they're trained or whatever, if we don't have a relationship with them.
And Robin, it was interesting, when she just flopped her head down and said, whatever, I trust you. I mean, it was really lovely to see that. And what was interesting when I was talking about the dog before that was a really, so-called aggressive, certainly toward the cameraman, it was a Doberman, not a Rot. I said a Rottie. It was a Doberman with his little tail sticking up, of course. So,
There's a question of what touch would be most helpful when trying to introduce a leash, or like it says, on leash dog, reactive dog to another reactive dog. Well, I don't introduce dogs to dogs on leash, to be honest. There's a lot of things I would do with movement that would not involve the dogs actually meeting on leash, because we trap them on leashes, which is challenging. I will put up on our platform, learn.ttouch.ca, we have some free modules that will give you an introduction for those of you who aren't so familiar with the work. But
and Robin, besides saying that, I want to make a comment about that, how we work with dogs who are aggressive toward other dogs. First of all, if you think about that concept that they're aggressive, aggression comes from a place of fear. If we make a dog aware of their body in a way that brings them into the body and connects them to the ground, and work with the whole area around the muzzle and under the eyes is as a calming area around the eyes, and you bring them into the body so you can actually touch them all along the back. And the thing about these circular touches, it's like brings them to a place of presence, connects them in the body. And then going down the legs, so we give them a good sense of the ground, because you'll often find that those dogs who are aggressive toward other dogs are not confident about their body being touched everywhere. And when you bring them into the body, both dogs, we will work on those dogs then with a dog that is safe. I mean, with an aggressive dog that's really aggressive. I mean, it's really a big dog. I work with a stuffy, and you can actually know, wait a minute, what do we have to do with this dog? How do we teach this dog to be calm and not afraid or reactive in the area of the other dog? And it's really successful when you give them a sense of themselves, and then instead of introducing them on leash, bring them into an area where they're T-touched in an area at a safe distance from another dog, and both dogs being T-touched. And we've had really great success with this over the years. So you put those up, Robin, where you can go for
yeah, and there was a question, other topics here on resource guarding food and toys. And I would say not necessarily specifically. I adopted a dog a couple of years ago who was a pretty serious resource guarder. We don't really know her background, but and I was thinking about, what did we do? Well, we traded her things. We didn't try to just take things from her, because but there was some thought that she was a dog that had lived with someone who was unhoused, and so I don't know that may or may not be true. did lots of trading with her. And then for me, I think it was a huge amount of building the relationship with her so that that was okay. And it depends. And there's lots of different ways to, I think there's a lot of different ways to deal with it, but gaining a relationship with your dog is a great start, is what my experience, because my dog also could not be off a leash, and we live on a farm and she's never on a leash. I mean, she's fine on a leash, but she just stays home. But that's totally from her wanting to stay here and so on. Sharon says, can I just add, I'm in a shelter environment. Sadly, they don't have enough stimulation, activity, energy release, and some turn to resource guarding. Yeah, for sure. This work is so valuable in shelters. It can change so much about just doing small amounts, because you don't have a lot of time if you're in a shelter environment. And instead of just petting your dog, and remember Art Goodrich, who was at the San Diego Zoo, said, if you have time to pet your animal, you have time to do the touch. And I promise you, it can make a huge difference when you change the contact with an animal to a more mindful contact rather than what I call the rufflers. I find that a lot of times when people are really happy, they ruffle their dogs or they pet them kind of hard. And I don't find there are many dogs that actually find that find it to really that enjoyable. So there are lots to do with it. So
Thank you so much. I want to answer a question that was asked before and I didn't answer fully at all. And that is, do I talk to a dog while I'm working on them? When I'm working with a class like that, I'm only saying a little bit to the dog with my voice, but I'm saying so much with my mind and my heart. But when I'm working with a dog alone, yes, I use my voice a lot. And it's really in admiration. And one of the things, I was just thinking about this, Robin, I think 2 nights ago, I woke up thinking about it. We don't punish dogs or horses. We show them what we want, and it's really different from the way I grew up riding, which many of you I'm sure did, or being with animals. They had to be correct. And instead, wait a minute, they're part of our family, whether it's a horse or a dog, it's the same to me. And how we have the techniques and this mindset to, instead of being afraid that you're not going to be able to control the animal, and which is what I think where punishment comes from, they're afraid. Wait a minute, how can we bring in this concept of forgiveness of ourselves, that we're not getting exactly what we want, and of whatever the animals is doing, and having the techniques then to say, scratch your head and think, wait a minute, I have a lot of choices here. How can I connect with this dog or cat or whatever it is, so they want to be with me? And that's what I find, it's just so exciting to be here. And for those of you who might be interested and could come in October, we are not talking about this a lot on our Zoom session enough. We're doing an event, a gathering together in Orlando, Florida in October. And we have a 2-day weekend that's open for everyone. And then we have 2 days of advanced training, which I think, Robin, we should be opening to those who are also on the online courses, right? They don't have to be a practitioner. You can be in the training. And then Monday we have it for TTouch for humans that I'm going to be doing. So it's the 12th, you have the dates, the 12th to the.
yeah, the 12th. No, that's actually not true. I just put the website. If you go to the TTouch.com website, you can click on the celebration and then click on the event. It's the 12th and 13th is the conference, and the 14th is TTouch for you, and the 10th and 11th is the advanced. Can I there's one more thing, and it was just said, just so I'm clear, a person could TTouch remotely with an animal using intention. I said, yes. And could a surrogate animal be a stuffed animal? You could, if you're, if you can. But we have many, many cases of people just in their minds working with their animals. And, Linda, I was thinking about Annegret, because she did that with her Was her child who was premature? Am I making that up?
It might have been Gudrun when her Ina was the size that fit in her hand when she was born.
Yeah, someone, anyway, and it doesn't hurt. That's the thing. It doesn't hurt, and it gives you something to do.
No, and we actually know it works, which is really fantastic. And one of the things we did at the Oakland Zoo in 2009, we had Anna Wise was there. She was the director of the Boulder Institute for Biofeedback, and she had a computer set up, so 2 computers, and I was hooked up, and Sandy Rakowitz were hooked up, and I was just imagining working on her, and you could see the change in the computers. It was really fascinating to see that. So the other thing I'd love to point out, in case anybody is interested, and on the East Coast, I'm doing a 3-day dog weekend in August at an amazing it's a center where all kinds of workshops are done, and it's a couple of 100 acres, beautiful rolling areas, and we have such a nice place for a workshop there. So if anybody's in the place where you would like to fly for that weekend, it's the weekend of the 25th of August. So I'm hoping.
Sorry, there's another question. If a dog shows uncertain for a specific area being touched, do you try a different touch or simply give a pause? Well, I would just say that our aim is to first of all find out what the dog says is acceptable. So it may be that you can use different parts of the hand, you can go to another part of the body, you can certainly pause and go back to somewhere that they were. And I think that's a huge sort of answer to a dog that says to them, I listen.
Well, and yeah, and exactly that. So if the dog says, oh, don't touch me, they say, oh, excuse me, and you go back to the area where the closest area that it was totally okay to be touched, and let them know that you hear them, that it's not okay, and go back and build that trust in that relationship that you have. This is where I think it's just amazing about building relationships. And I think the reason a person would say, well, wait a minute, I gotta touch the dog there. I think because it's fear that we won't be successful. Say, instead of saying, excuse me, wait a minute, how can we get this trust together that's okay for you, that you feel safe? And I think that is something that is really, really exciting about this work, because we have so many tools. If one thing doesn't work, instead of doing it harder or louder, we just say, scratch the head and say, what could I possibly, how could I bring a sense of connection with this dog that would be interesting and acceptable to you?
Where is it in Maryland? Where is
Oh, it's 15 minutes from Frederick, which is really, it's one of these wonderful towns. It's one of the places near Washington, DC. Yeah, you fly into Dulles. Yes.
You know, the other thing, if you have a dog that's not comfortable about being touched, one of the best uses for dusters is actually to touch the dog. So he's using something other than your hand, and you can start it in the air first to kind of show them what you're going to do. This is what I use my dusters for, is to touch animals.
I like the color.
Yeah.
Very cool. Super. Great.
Good. Hey, I had a real quick story about a transformation, if I could share. I'm mostly a horse practitioner, and I bought my first dog wand in the 90s, and Karen, a Santa Barbara client, had friends in LA with a dog who they'd had 6 months and could not be touched behind the midline. And they rescued her. They knew her story. She'd been chained for years in a backyard and kicked in the hind end. And they were such a nice couple. So I said, yes, I'll do this dog. So we set up in the garden on cushions. She had her people there. She loved them so much. And I started with the muzzle. I gotta say, that's the biggest in my notes is the muzzle is the speed of emotion. That just got me because this dog, oh my God, and she just loved it so much. She trusted me so much. And I had the wand over to the side and I turned it around short ways and I worked midway back with the back of my hand and she was fine. And then I was talking to them and I was stroking with the wand all the way over her hind end, her hind legs. And I learned early on from you years before that was to have no agenda, you know. And then I went and I was talking to them and I did touches all the way down her hind legs and through her hind end. And I realized I was doing what I was doing and she was looking at me with complete trust. And at the end of the session, I sent them home with the wand and he had said, she's kind of my dog. And when I sit at my computer desk, I can almost stroke her. So he called me the next day and he said, tonight at my computer desk, I used the wand. I touched her whole hind end and she slept on the bed with us tonight.
Cool. And for those of you talking about the muzzle, you're talking about not a muzzle.
Yes, I
but on-
started with small touches all over the mouth and the muzzle and then the ears and then worked back and then picked up the wand and almost intentionally was not intentional, you know, just stroke her wand while I was speaking to her people. And but he was crying on the phone the next day. I've never received such a phone call. And I gave them the wand free. I was like, here, you take this. This wand was meant for you. But the duster, I love that too.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
Maggie,
Sorry.
it's interesting, Maggie, that you were able to touch around the muzzle. So it'd be interesting to know. So he couldn't touch her anywhere.
No, she had been kicked in the hind end while chained for all these years. Sorry if that didn't come clear. So
No.
it was obvious she'd been, yeah, her hind end was not accessible. Her whole front end and chest, they could touch and pet, but she was just so afraid of her hind end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great, thank
Yeah.
you. Nice to see you. So, my dears, we come to an end. I'm always sad to hang up and leave you all. It's so nice to see you. And let's see if everybody is still here. If I just wanted to see, I think anyway, if anybody, we're going to end this recording, Robin. Actually, we'll just stop the recording.
Okay, I will do that. I've got to go feed horses.
Okie dokie.